Drop it. Yeah.
Alright everybody, what is going on? My name is Flexible, or Flexy, or Flex, whatever you want to call me. And today I'm gonna show you my Appliancer deck profile. Now first of all, shout out to my boy Greg. I'm sorry man, I left you hanging there. It's been like 3 weeks or so. I promised him to do this deck profile and I forgot it, or I got busy or whatever. But yeah, today's the day. I'm gonna show it to y'all. Another thing that I want to mention before we get into it is that this is pretty casual because the archetype itself isn't too powerful. It's also a bit more control heavy. It's not like a huge combo. I mean, there is some combo potential and you can splash in some needle fiber combos or whatever, but personally I feel like it doesn't fit, it doesn't sit right with me, you know? That's why I kept it control heavy and casual. Also, there's no side deck, you'll see it when you get there. So first of all, let's get into the main deck. Now in terms of Appliancer monsters, there are 3 different monsters in the TCG currently, and I play 3 of the Soccer Troll, 3 of the Copy Buckle, and 1 Breaker Buckle. Now one thing I want to mention as well is that when you're trying to build this deck, the total amount of Appliancer cards in the TCG currently is 18 cards, so even if you play all of them at 3 copies per deck, you still have 22 empty spaces in your deck to play whatever you want. So even if, like right from the get-go, you can decide, do I want to go first or second? Do I want to play hand traps? You can play 12 hand traps and you still have 10 extra slots in your deck, right? Or you can play all the 9 Solemn Judgment trap cards and some floodgates and you still have slots in your deck. So it's pretty dope, especially if you choose to not play 3 copies of every card, like this one for example in my case. That's one thing you can take into consideration when building this deck. Now this one is the most important one. You need to play him at 3 because his effect is that if you control an Appliancer monster, you can special summon this from your hand, and if you special summon a Soccer Troll while you control a Soccer Troll, then you can special summon a Soccer Troll from your deck. So basically, opening these 2 is a 3 monster board, but this also works if you open one of these 2, because his effect is that you can target an Appliancer monster you control, then copy his name basically, copy Buckle, get it, and then special summon him, and then you trigger his effect again because you special summoned a Soccer Troll sort of, and then you special summon a 3rd copy. That's basically the main way of getting monsters on your board, and there are other ways to search the monster and to get into them. So performing the main line of play shouldn't be too unlikely in the usual case. And then I play the one of Breaker Buckle. Now the effect is that as a quick effect you can discard it if an Appliancer monster or Link monster will be destroyed by battle. You can discard this card and then it's not destroyed by battle and you don't take any battle damage, which is a cool effect, especially when you consider that, which you're gonna see later when we get into the extra deck, that crashing your monsters into your opponent's monsters is almost even the main win condition of this deck. Then this might seem pretty cool. I might even bump it up to 2, I'm not sure right now, but right now I feel like this is the way I want to go. But playing it at 2 copies would be okay too. The only thing is that this card doesn't gain you any advantage or anything, like card advantage. That's why I don't want to play it at 3, but playing it at 2 is definitely possible. Now the next card is the Format Skipper, and with him the Gosari ad Ignister, the search target basically for when you link off the Format Skipper. Now this one is pretty good because if an Appliancer link, if a Link monster you control is destroyed by battle, then you can special summon this card and then you have a 3000 body on field, which is pretty dope. Then there's the Format Skipper, which searches him, but it also can function as an Appliancer monster where you can special summon additional cards, or you know, it's a level 1, so you can use it for way out though or whatever. It's pretty cool. Nothing much to say here. Now the next cards are Kaijus. I play 6 Kaijus in this deck. Now optimally I would say you play 3 Thunder King and 3 Jizukiro because they're the highest attack values, and I'm gonna explain why that is important in the extra deck. But currently I don't own 3 copies of Jizukiro, so I put in the ones with the next highest attack, which would be Dokoran and Gamseel. Also playing 6 is probably the optimal ratio because seeing too many isn't really worth it. The deck is a little too slow for that, I feel like. But you will need multiple Kaijus, so that's pretty good. On to the spell cards. I play 3 Electrolyrical Appliancer Wall, then 1 Terraforming, and I play 3 Appliancer Reuse and 1 Appliancer Test. Now the field spell is basically alongside Soccer Troll, the main like combo card of the deck, because it searches you an Appliancer card on activation, any card except the field spell, so you can also search one of those. And it also helps you recycle resources if you link summon a monster, an Appliancer monster, so you can take back an Appliancer monster from your graveyard. And also, another main gimmick of the deck is playing with link zones and monsters being co-linked and not being co-linked. And if a monster declares an attack, then the field spell allows you to switch the positions of an Appliancer link monster, helping you to either have a monster be linked or co-linked or not co-linked, and therefore using the different effects depending on what you see fit. So you always want to see, or you want to see the field spell as often as possible. Pretty important. Then there's 3 reuse, which is basically a monster reborn for any Appliancer monster, and you have to put it at the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field, which is pretty dope if you use it on extra deck monsters, because you just recycle your resources. You will notice that sometimes, depending on how you like to play the deck, you might run out of certain options, and then using the reuse and putting it back into the extra deck is insane. And then I play the one test. The test has the effect that you need to have a link 2 monster basically, because the link 1 monsters don't point downwards, so the only option we have in the TCG currently is the link 2 monster, which has 2 downward pointing arrows. And then you can target link 1 Appliancer monsters in your graveyard up to the amount of arrows that you have freely available to you, and then you can special summon them from your graveyard. But it's a hard one per turn. It requires you to have a link 2 monster that points downwards, and it requires you to have Appliancer link 1 monsters in your grave, so it's pretty specific. It can help you gain a lot of advantage because it special summons you 2 monsters basically for free, but it's a little too specific, and it's also for the later stage of the game because it's kind of grindy. The deck is pretty grindy itself, so that's not a bad thing, but you won't be able to use this card. Like I used to play this card at 2 or even 3, but I felt like it was it wasn't that card in my hand way too often, you know what I'm saying? So and also because you could search it with a field spell if you really need to, I only play this at 1 copy. Now then there are some consistency boosting cards. I play the 1-for-1, I play 2 Machine Dupe, and I play 2 Where Art Thou. Now you could technically also play 3 Machine Dupe, because opening Field Spell and Machine Dupe, or Soccer Troll Machine Dupe, or whatever. Actually, Field Spell Machine Dupe is probably the most, like, the biggest power play this deck has. So taking out the 1-for-1 for another Machine Dupe to have it in your hand, in your opening hand, as likely as possible wouldn't be a bad call. But having the 1-for-1 is pretty good as well. I'm still not 100% sure about that. Maybe I'm gonna take it out one day, especially because I might be missing some other control heavier cards, so taking a 1-for-1 alongside some other options and then playing something like Compulsory Evacuation Device might be pretty good, but I'm still thinking about that. Then I play 3 Pot of Desires. Playing Pot of Avarice is another thing that I've seen some people do, but the problem is that, especially with Appliancer Reuse, with the Monster Reborn basically, which by the way I also play a regular Monster Reborn, sometimes you don't want to recycle your entire graveyard, which is probably what you would have to do if you played Pot of Avarice. So yeah, you're drawing 2 cards and you're recycling your resources, but your graveyard is empty, which isn't always the best thing. So I feel like Pot of Desires is the best call in this situation. Maybe I'm cutting it down to 2, but drawing cards is never bad, and the Monster Reborn speaks for itself. Summons a monster, pretty cool. Now to my trap lineup, I play 3 Rivalry of Warlords and 3 Solemn Strike. Now, usually when I play control heavy decks, I always want to play at least one of the Solemn Trap cards. They're extremely powerful. Obviously, they've been limited and whatnot for a while, maybe even banned. I don't know. I'm pretty new to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. And also, but because you have, you might have some life point cost due to Where Art Thou, playing something like Solemn Judgment might be detrimental in combination. That's why I play Solemn Strike, which only costs 1500 life points, and also negating a summon or a monster effect, which Solemn Judgment can do, for example, might be pretty good too. And then the Rivalry of Warlords. Now the Appliancer monsters, main deck and extra deck, are all machines, so this could technically conflict with something like Gosariad Ignister or Format Skipper, but in most cases, hopefully it wouldn't do. Now onto the extra deck. There are 5 different extra deck monsters currently legal in the TCG. I think the OCG has overall more different Appliancer cards, but we've only gotten all of those. And you know, since I play this on a more casual level, I just play all of the 5 Appliancer extra deck monsters. I don't play any combo cards, combo extenders, or what end board pieces or whatever. So yeah, we have the Laundry Drake, which is basically, which I mentioned before, the main win condition. You don't take battle damage from battles involving this card, and if it's co-linked, it has a upward pointing arrow, and you battle a monster with him, you just banish the monster after damage calculation. And if it's not co-linked, you destroy the monster after damage calculation, and the opponent takes damage equal to the attack points of the monster you destroyed. That's why giving your opponent a 3300 attack kaiju, then attacking into it with Laundry Drake, your opponent takes 3300 damage, and even if he gets destroyed, like, so what? You got over your opponent's monster, you gave him huge amounts of damage. It's pretty good. And depending on the monsters your opponent has, and maybe depending also on the means that he has to stop you, if you can summon out 2 or 3 of those, you might even be able to OTK. So yeah, this is my favorite card also of the deck. Then we have Dryad Drake. Now, he is more so a, I would say, you know, battle phase enabler maybe, because if he's not co-linked and targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack once per turn. And if he's co-linked, you can, in your battle phase, choose to target him and another Appliancer link monster you control, and then switch their positions. So you can basically, even if you had to have one of your monsters co-linked or not co-linked before, which you don't want to have now anymore, you can activate his effect and then switch their positions to, for example, if you have him co-linked and him co-linked as well, because you have the link 2 monster here which points downward and down left, then you would have him co-linked on the left side, him on the right side, then you activate this effect, you switch their positions, and now he's able to deal damage to your opponent, but before he wasn't, right? And then we have the Vacuum Elephant, which has the effect that you can discard a card and then target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. And if he's not co-linked, you can attack directly with him. He has 1000 attack points. And if he's co-linked, you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it for free, basically. So no discarding cost or whatever. This is your main removal tool, basically. Can come in handy sometimes. Maybe even if you need the final 1000 attack push for a game or whatever, you can summon him, have him not co-linked, and then he can attack directly. You can also combo this with something like Machine Dupe, so you would have 2 of those, maybe even 3 of those, and then activate Machine Dupe, all of them get doubled, they're all not co-linked, then you can attack directly 3 times, 6000 damage. Then we have Kappa Scale, which also points upwards, and if it's co-linked, you can tribute this card and then special summon an Appliancer monster from your graveyard. And if it's not co-linked, you can tribute this card and then special summon a level 4 or lower Appliancer monster from your graveyard. So basically, if it's co-linked, you can special summon any of them, and if it's not co-linked, you can only special summon one of the main monsters, which also gives an interesting hint, because it says level 4 or lower, but the 3 main deck monsters we have in the TCG right now are all level 1. So either the OCG has level 4 monsters maybe already, or we're gonna get some in the future possibly, which would mean that the deck might have some innate rank 4 plays in the future, which sounds pretty good to me. But for now, it's basically just a tool for mild recursion, but personally I haven't gotten around to using this card way too often, so might be kind of underwhelming, but it's still a nice inclusion. And then there's a Link 2 monster. It's the Celtopus or Keltopus, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, with a C in the beginning. And if this card is linked, your opponent cannot target it for an attack or with card effects. And if a monster battles, if a link monster, Appliancer link monster you control battles while it is co-linked to this card, it gains, during damage calculation, it gains attack equal to the amount of co-linked monsters to this card times 1000. So basically your monster can gain a maximum of 2000 attack during damage calculation, which can come in clutch sometimes. So this one gains you some advantage by drawing you a card. But it also protects itself, and it also protects your monster sometimes if it gains them attack points and then they don't get destroyed by battle, you know. But also you have to play this one at 3 because this is the only reason why the gimmick works in the first place, right? It has a downward pointing arrow, down left pointing arrow, so the co-linking is established by this monster, and not playing 3 would be foolish. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning is that the Link 1 monsters, those 4, cannot be used as link material the turn you summon them, but the Link 2 monster can. So keep this in mind when you play the combos, or when you try to like learn the combos and think about some lines of play that you might be using in the future if you want to build this deck. Now, since this archetype is pretty new and also pretty much under the radar because it isn't too powerful, I want to show some, like, basically 2 lines of play that I personally like to keep in mind. The first one is summoning out multiples of the Laundry Dragon. The Laundry Dragon, you don't lose anything really if it gets destroyed by battle, right? It's actually the exact opposite, because let's say, for example, you open 2 Soccer Trolls, okay? Now you would normal summon the Soccer Troll, then special summon the second Soccer Troll because you control an Appliancer monster, then you special summon the 3rd copy. 2-card combo, pretty standard. Then you use those two to go into the Link 2 monster, and then you use this one to go into the Laundry Drake number 1, and then you use this one to go into Laundry Drake number 2. Now obviously if you have different cards in hand, if you had like say a Copy Buckle, which would kind of turn it into a 3-card combo, or if you had used Machine Dupe or whatever, then you could special summon out this one as well. And then before you link to, so you're at this point right here, you link this one away for the Laundry Drake, then you special summon this one, link it away for another Laundry Drake, and then link this one away for a third one, right? So you have 3 Laundry Drakes on field, which means that your opponent, if he won't be able to remove them by card effects, he would have to sacrifice 3 of his own monsters to attack over those guys, because they're all not co-linked right now. And if they battle a monster, they destroy it after damage calculation, the opponent takes damage equal to the monster's attack point, and you yourself don't take any damage. So in a more casual setting, this right here might even be a pretty oppressive board. I've played against a friend who, shout out to Team COG at this point, Charles, my boy, Fire Fists and Ancient Warriors, and at some points when he didn't have any like effect veilers, imperms, or just other card destructions or whatever, he couldn't really out this board, quote unquote, because sacrificing your monsters, not gaining any advantage off of it, and taking the damage might even be lethal sometimes, So this is one of the lines of play that I like to go for. And the other example I wanted to show you is, now obviously there are multiple ways to get into this, but as I said before, the biggest power play the deck has is Field Spell and Machine Dupe. And now what I would do is I would activate the Field Spell, activate the effect, search myself a Socket Troll, then normal summon it, Machine Dupe. Yeah, so you special summon those two, then you link 2 away into your Link 2 monster, and then because you link summoned, you can add back a monster to your hand, and at this point you still haven't used the special summoning effect of Socket Troll, right? So you can special summon it now, and then you have 2 monsters on field that you can use, and what you can do at this point is link those 2 away for a Laundry Dragon and a Dryad Drake. Now there are multiple ways you could go about this, because if they're co-linked like this, he can be targeted for attacks or card effects, and since he has 0 attack points, that might be pretty helpful. Also, the monster gets banished and the opponent doesn't take any damage if he attacks over your Laundry Drake. The only problem in this situation is the Dryad Drake, because he doesn't have any protection if he's co-linked. So if you wanted to ensure that he is protected, you could switch them. Now both of those aren't co-linked, and then if he gets attacked, you can negate 1 attack. If he gets attacked, your opponent takes damage equal to the attack points of the monster he attacked you with. And if one of those gets destroyed, which most likely would be this one, or maybe if he has 3 monsters on field, he can destroy this one too, then you can draw a card. So this also might be a good setup, but keep in mind that in this situation, if you have them like those, like this, so they're not co-linked, then this one isn't protected, so you can just beat over it, and you would lose the potential advantage, because he can first attack over this one, 0 attack, it's not protected, so it goes away, and then if he destroys one of those, even though they're not co-linked, the effect of drawing 1 doesn't apply anymore. So yeah, those are the 2 main lines of play. Now obviously you can play around with it. You can also go for a Vacuum Elephant in this case. So he is not co-linked, he is co-linked, but then if your opponent declares an attack, you can use the Field Spells effect to switch those 2. And now he's co-linked and he's not. That means that you still have the protection on him because he's linked, but also you can use his effect to negate the attack that is being declared on him, right? So you secured the protection, you established an attack negation, and at the same time, even if he attacks twice over this one now, you still have the draw 1 effect because he's not co-linked. So there are multiple ways to go about establishing your board, but I feel like, personally, in my opinion, those 2 are the best sort of end board cards, because this one I would usually only use for removal or for attacking your opponent directly, and then those 2, I feel like maybe there's something I'm missing right now, but I feel like this is the most optimal way to go about your battle phase, or your opponent's battle phase as well. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the extra deck. And that's it for the videos, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you maybe learned something. Maybe you found a new deck for you. It should also be pretty cheap because all those cards are in Battles of Legend Armageddon. That's where they were released in the TCG, and they're pretty cheap. At least the core, and you know, the core is about half of the deck, and also the entire extra deck. So yeah, as I said, you can have like up to 18 Appliancer monsters in your deck. Then playing Format Skipper is pretty cheap. Kaijus should be even cheaper nowadays too, because some of them are reprinted in structure decks and stuff. Gusari and Ignister should be pretty cheap. Terraforming, I'm looking maybe 1-for-1. Machine Dupe might be some of the more expensive cards, but at the same time, you don't. I mean, I want to say you don't have to play Machine Dupe, but actually you might actually have to, because it's just it just generates way too much advantage, and it helps you get into your extra deck monsters. So yeah, maybe the trap cards, but I'm pretty sure if I calculated the value now, it would be pretty budget. It's also fun. It has a very unique playstyle. It focuses, as I said before, you know, it focuses heavily on the being calling, not being calling shenanigans. So there's a lot of things you can do. And if you want to have a fun deck to experiment with or something, I can definitely tell you that this is a pretty good choice. So yeah, if you liked this video, then leave a thumbs up. If you didn't, then tell me what you didn't like about this video. You know, I'm always trying to improve my content. I'm always trying to find some better setups for my camera. Maybe, you know, talk about the cards in more or less detail or whatever. So tell me what you think, guys. Leave a comment. If you want to see more content like this, then subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to do way more deck profiles in the future. I want to do duel videos with my friends. I want to do all like different cool stuff, talking about different topics, discussion videos, etc. So there's a lot more to come. And yeah, Greg, if you like this video as well, man, tell me what you think. But that's it for now. So goodbye, everyone.